Oh my goodness gracious, how great a way is that to start the show for a Tuesday. Mr. Neil Young on this day in 1972 began a 3-week run at number 1 on the U.S. singles chart with that song right there. It's called Heart of Gold, and it was a single released from the album in 1972, Harvest. If you were listening to the show yesterday, and I know you were, you loyal 9 a.m.ers, you, this week in music history, something we do every Monday morning at 11. We talked about with our musicologist friend Brian Allison the album Harvest, which was, one of the biggest in Neil Young's illustrious career. And that song, Heart of Gold, from the album Harvest, Young's only U.S. number 1. And we learned on This Week in Music History yesterday that the song Heart of Gold features backup vocals from none other than Linda Ronstadt and James Taylor. How do you like that with some Canadian content to begin the show today? It is 6 minutes after 9 on this Tuesday morning. I got an email into my inbox just as the show was beginning from Rangers Reach, a mega jackpot with 2 draws tonight. Well, we're going to talk more about that on the show today. Believe you me. Coming up at 10:30. To be specific, you'll learn more about, it's not just a game tonight at the Odd. It's not just a special occasion around the game tonight at the Odd, which I'll let you in on in just a moment. It's also a mega jackpot kind of day. So you'll learn about that in more detail on the show this morning at 10:30. It occurred to me last night as I laid down in bed that most of us, and I recognize this isn't universally applicable, but I think most of us get these simple pleasures to bookend every day, right? At least for me, I consider it one of life's great simple pleasures to sink into bed at night under the covers. It's just like, now it's that beautiful feeling, that time to rest. And then when you get up in the morning and you take that first sip of coffee, come on with your coming on. Another one of life's simplest little pleasures. You get to bookend every day. Sip that coffee, lay under those covers.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9.
And off we go to your Farwell Show 5 for a Tuesday morning. Number 1. Is there a better way to start your day other than with the sound of Austin Matthews scoring a goal? A little AM on AM in the AM.
Matthews back to the point to Marner. Marner holds, still with it, to Willie on the far side. He scored earlier from there, took a shot, blocked, got a rebound to Matthews, holding, shooting, scores! I need to coach in this league. I would be terrific. Did I not tell him to shoot from there?
Joe Bowen told him to shoot from there. You know what, though? There might be a better way to start the day, because the better way would be AM on AM in the AM times 2.
Now on the far side, Matthews dishes off into the corner for Nylander. Matthews in the slot. It comes in front. A shot, score! Brilliance! Absolute brilliance! Austin Matthews with a ripping wrist shot. He has 2 on the night.
Austin Matthews with 2 goals. The Leafs win. The Leafs win 6-2, crushing Calgary last night. Number 2 on your Farwell Show 5, the Kitchener Rangers take on the London Knights tonight. And just as importantly, that's what I mentioned a moment ago, this is Don Cameron Potato Night at the Odd in support of the House of Friendship. You can bring a bag of potatoes, or better yet, a cash donation for the House of Friendship to the game. As Don always said, the paper money is a lot easier to carry. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, there's been a significant drop in the number of police-reported hate crimes in Waterloo Region. A report coming to the Police Services Board this week shows 237 hate crimes reported to police last year, which represents a 36% decrease from 2023. This marks the first time we've seen a year-over-year decrease in police-reported hate-motivated crimes since at least 2019. Number 4, in response to the current economic challenges, the city of Kitchener is stepping up to support local businesses and ensure the long-term prosperity of our community with the launch of a new initiative, the Support Local campaign. The campaign, a collaborative effort between the city and local business organizations, aims to bolster the Kitchener economy and ensure that Kitchener remains a vibrant and strong community. Olympia. Olympia. Have you ever noticed that the ice resurfacing machines used on rinks around this region are not Olympia ice resurfacing machines, which are made at Resurf Ice in Elmira? I've seen one at Rim Park and Olympia. Every rink should have an Olympia. City of Kitchener. Bolster the local economy. Collaboration. Olympia. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. I hope you noticed that the first 4 items on your Farwell Show 5 list today were all positive. Good vibes only, baby. Good vibes only, because today on this show is a Trump and tariff-free Tuesday. That is the last time you will hear those words. So please do tell a friend. I don't want any missteps on the show today. Those 2 T words are now the same on this show and will be treated the same as the team that shall not be named. You mention either of those words on the show today, and you get this.
Shut up! Shut up! You don't tell me shut up. I tell you shut up!
Or you could possibly get this.
2 things, okay? Shut up.
And maybe even this if you say one of those T words.
Yeah, shut up!
All right, we've got some issues to discuss, but we will not say or on the show today. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I received another video this morning. I mean, I only spend so much time on social media, and I can only keep up with so much. And on Saturday, while I was in Owen Sound, working for a living like adults do, I went to school, I got me my edumacation, and then I got myself a damn job. Because that's what you do, you see. And I will not tell a lie. I had my share of fun while I was in school. There was the occasional class skipped while I was at the University of Waterloo to go to the Bomber instead of sitting in on my philosophy class. No offense to Professor Campbell, who was terrific. And I didn't really dig anthropology a whole lot. That was my first C in university. Don't worry, it wasn't my last either. But when you get there, once you graduate, they don't ask you to see, nobody asks to see your transcript. They just want to know if you got your degree. Anyway, I went to the Bomber from time to time when I was in college, studying radio broadcasting and all of the various techniques associated with it. Because I had a post-secondary background already, I didn't have a full slate of classes. So, there was the occasional opportunity to not attend class and do more fun things. But I bring up Saturday and working for a living and all of that stuff because we know on Saturday that thousands of students in and around the university, Wilfrid Laurier University, went out, took over the streets, had their annual St. Paddy's Day party, and they did this despite an injunction that threatened them with criminal charges. Right? You could have a criminal record. You could be arrested and or detained. And as one young gentleman said on the 6 o'clock news last night on CTV Kitchener, injunction smunction. What I think would be really awesome, because obviously this was captured on camera, wouldn't it be kind of fitting, kind of poetic, if because he's easily identifiable, we identify him and charge him criminally? I mean, it could happen, couldn't it? We use CCTV camera surveillance all the time to track people down and apply necessary charges. Injunction smunction. So I got another video sent to me this morning, and It showed the big crowd. And I'm not so sure we ever really thought that things would be different despite the increased threat of criminal charges. I mean, you can't arrest everybody, and clearly the students knew that as well as they took to the streets for their annual party. I've been mulling this over, and I think there are two things perhaps that we have not yet tried. One seems remarkably simple to me, and I wonder why the schools stubbornly refuse to do this. Change Reading Week. Make Reading Week the week that covers March the 17th. Whatever week that is, make that Reading Week every year. Because you see, on Reading Week, the students go home or they go on vacation somewhere. So if you change Reading Week, you will not have the critical mass of students there to have a party. Seems pretty simple to me. And I get it. This time of the term is very late in the term at university and college. So, what would the point be of having Reading Week now? Well, I would say the point of having Reading Week now would be a small price to pay, having it late in the term, or a criminal record, right? Like, what do you want? You want a criminal record, or do you want to have your Reading Week at a really strange time? And if you can show us that you're going to be adults and behave like adults, then we could put Reading Week back where it traditionally sits, kind of middle of the term. But I think that's the easiest way out of this. The other thing that occurred to me is all of this preparation, all of this effort around bracing for the party and what we're going to do to try to deter or reduce the size of the party. Police get heavily involved. There's an operational plan. Emergency services are involved and overwhelmed at times. The city is involved, and all of that is getting paid out of our pockets as taxpayers. So what essentially we have is a problem that belongs to everybody, right? And you know as well as I do that when it's everybody's problem, it's actually nobody's problem. So I wonder if we're not going to move Reading Week, which I think is the easiest way out of this, what if we just laid the problem at the doorstep of the hallowed halls of academia? What if we sent the bill to the schools and the schools can pay the cost instead of taxpayers paying the cost, and they can recover those costs, the schools can, by increasing tuition. And if the tuition gets so expensive so that it deters students from attending there, well, I think the schools will figure out pretty quick, because they need the students and they need the tuition, how to change that culture, right? So what if we actually make it the school's problem and put them on the hook financially for the party that exists every year? Maybe if we make it someone's or something's problem, then something takes responsibility and accountability for it. And just like that, we begin to eliminate the problem that exists for everybody in the community. Because if it's everybody's problem, it's nobody's problem. We could move Reading Week, or we could bill the schools. Two things that popped into my mind as possible ways to bring an end to the party that just doesn't seem to quit. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Got an email this morning from Ian just as we were beginning the show. Ian writes to Mike at 570news.com under the subject line, "You know who." Good morning, Mike. Thank you very much. We need more of that in our lives. I think Ian refers to he who shall not be named on the show today. Kathy's email to Mike at 570news.com. Thank you for a true TNT-free Tuesday. Terrific. Oh, Kathy, your alliteration gets me all fired up here. Thank you for that. And Elias wants to know via email to Mike at 570news.com. You warned us today not to mention can I say president of U.S. instead of his name on your show? Elias, I highly recommend you try me. Go ahead and try me today. Look, all we're trying to do, because I don't know about you, but it feels incredibly overwhelming to me. I came in from, I think I had been out walking Rosie the Pandemic pup. I don't know. But on the weekend, I walked back into the house, and we always have something news-y going on. And there's the panel on CBC News World talking about, those, the multisyllabic T word we're not saying today. And then there was the president of the United States commenting about this or that. And I just thought, it's everywhere. It's all the time. It's rather overwhelming. So maybe what we all just need in our lives, as Ian said in his email this morning, is a little break from that. So we're going to take that break, but we're not getting away from the stuff that's going on, including our prime minister currently, who's in France and was in a media conference yesterday that got a little bit testy, shall we say. So we'll talk about that at 11 this morning. We're going to talk about shaping our own housing future here in the region. That's coming up at 11:30. We're going to let you in on a big mega jackpot through Rangers Reach, which does so much in granting to the community. That's coming up at 10:30 this morning. And right now, we're going to send you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then one of the other big stories right here in Canada, I mean, a business, a company, a store as old as the country itself is headed towards, it appears to be anyway, its final days. And liquidation could start today at the Hudson's Bay Company. So I thought, well, what a great opportunity for us to talk about our favorite department store memories and experiences, because I get the sense that we're not going there to the department store a whole lot more or a whole lot these days, but we sure as heck used to, including some classic places right here in town. So let's take that trip down a department store memory lane on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is the end of an era in Canadian retail, as Russell quite rightly points out via email to Mike at 570news.com. Not just as old as the country, but centuries older than Canada is the Hudson's Bay Company. From fur trading to the brick and mortar retail stores that so many of us know and dare I say, love. I can think back not too long ago to the Olympics themed and branded clothing we could get there, the very popular mittens. I think that Hudson's Bay blanket and the colors associated with it are still incredibly popular items. And it's about to, I think, it seems anyway, all signs point to, coming to an end. Liquidation could start as early as today. And the fact that 9,000 jobs across the country, including those jobs at retail outlets here in the region of Waterloo, is certainly no small or laughing matter here. We're talking about people's livelihoods being at stake. But this just is yet another sign of the challenges that brick and mortar retail face. And there was some good reporting over the weekend that I read in the Globe and Mail about where things may have gone wrong. And one of the things certainly recently that put a dent in Hudson Bay Company's fortunes was the decision to, first of all, go private, because the idea was that if we went private, we could do the sorts of things that need to get done without impacting shareholders. But then once going private, or once having gone private, what Hudson's Bay tried to do was split off its online store with its bricks and mortar retail and make them two different pillars, if you will, within the company. And it got incredibly expensive, particularly on the online side. So what I thought we would do is we talk about this story and maybe have some memories of the Bay itself, but specifically other department store experiences and our favorite memories of stores that are no longer here. And I need your help on this, of course, at 519-570-2545, star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. I want you to think back to those stores that you used to shop at that you no longer do, or maybe no longer can because they don't exist anymore. Highway Market comes to mind first and foremost, I'm sure, in this community. And that has always been the stuff of legend. Another one that came to mind for me, though, and I'm sure you remember it, right? How about Towers at Bridgeport and Weber in Waterloo? I have many a memory of being there to shop. And I think back on my poor, dear, sweet mother who had 5 kids to tote around to these various stores. And let me tell you what used to happen in the Towers department store, because I had an older brother who was both a prankster and a dink. And we would be walking through Towers department store. And back in the day, like, things have changed over time. But if you were in one of those change rooms, it was only a curtain that you pulled. And my brother would push me into those change rooms, much to the dismay of the people who were in there, because this kid just comes barreling in because he got shoved in there by his brother. The other thing that we would do was, in the clothing section, we would go and hide in the various carousels of clothes so that our mother, again, she's got 5 to keep track of. And there we are, hiding amongst the clothes so she can't find us and or keep track of all of us. The woman's just trying to clothe her kids. And there we are, goofing off at Towers. So that was another one that came to mind for me. And, of course, one of my favorites, and I'm sure it's one that's got a fond memory for you too, was Bud's department store in downtown Kitchener, where you could get anything you needed, from the linens for home to the clothing, you name it. And, of course, when you were at Bud's, it was the pneumatic tubes that played such an integral role in amazing the kids when you went shopping. That invoice would go from where you paid up the pneumatic tube to who knows where in that building. And, you know, until its final days, I was really privileged to get to know the Bud family a little bit before they closed that store in downtown Kitchener, a 90-year tradition. And right up until the very end, until it closed for good, I would shop there at the beginning of every Kitchener Ranger season to buy a new tie. I would go. That's where I would start the season every year. I got to get a new tie from Bud's before we started another Kitchener Rangers season. So just some of the memories that I have of department stores past, and I wonder about yours. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Jody, good morning.
Hi. I don't really have a lot of, like, I shop around, like, but Giant Tiger is getting to know me really well.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Because they're affordable. But some people won't go to Giant Tiger because they're too good for Giant Tiger. But I go there because I'm a low-income person, and it's affordable. All
right, Jody. And you know what? That's a great reason to go there. That makes me think, too. And department stores, that was the attraction, right? You go there, you get virtually anything. And because of the purchasing power, yeah. How about Kmart, the anchor tenant, the old Waterloo town/public square, right? Right there on the corner of essentially King and William. Kmart was a big one. Pickleball Pat, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I got 2 really fast stories for you today regarding department stores. One, my mom worked at Towers. She loved it. She worked in fabric department. It was like one of those dream jobs. She was so into sewing and all that kind of thing that it wasn't like going to work for her. So that was pretty cool.
Love it. Love it.
Mine was, I ended up working for Simpsons at the head office in Toronto. And I, as a young man, was involved in writing the payroll system and then maintaining the payroll system for the whole company. And then the company was taken over by the Bay. Let me just say, when a company's taken over and your boss says nothing is going to change, don't believe him.
Been there, Pat. You betcha.
Yeah. Now, the last thing really fast, and this would be better on my buddy Gary's Living Retirement segment. So I'm an old guy, and I reminisce. And I went to the Bay in Kitchener. Oh, it's got to be about 3 years ago now. And I I was trying on hats. I got this really huge head. There's hardly ever a hat that fits me. And anyway, I was trying on some hats in the menswear area, and it wasn't busy, like they aren't. And there was a lady working there, though, and she was just tagging some stuff. And we started talking away. And I started reminiscing about working at the head office. And we chatted for like 10 minutes. Anyway, I left the store, and I got in my car, and I started driving down the expressway. And lo and behold, looking in my rearview mirror, I had one of the hats on that I was trying on. It still had the price tag hanging from the hat, like right up the front.
Wait a minute. You paid for it, or did you walk out without paying?
I walked out without paying for it. So I talked to her for 15 minutes, walked out of the store without paying for that, look in the mirror, and oh my God, I started laughing. And I think, oh yeah, I got to tell Gary about this one. This is one for his stuff.
I love it. Pickleball Pat, the hat thief. But some fond memories. Worked at Simpsons. That reminds me of one of my best friends from high school. His mom worked at Sears. Those were good, solid, secure jobs back in the day. Things have changed. We'll keep taking your department store memories on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A near 400-year-old institution comes to an end in this country as liquidation at Hudson's Bay could start as early as today. We're taking a trip down memory lane in those department stores we used to visit. Jeff's email to Mike at 570news.com remembers Eaton's, which reminds me because Eaton's was the anchor tenant at Market Square in downtown Kitchener, right? Remember Robinson's department store, which was the anchor tenant over at the King Center? Robinson's department store. We're going to miss you, Bay. We're going to miss you. Back to the phones. Rick, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How you doing, buddy?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good, fine, thanks. Yeah, just you're saying about Highway Market, of course. That's the staple. Everybody remembers that. I remember as a kid. You were saying Buds. And that's kind of funny because I think that's where we went to get our St. Jerome's uniforms, I think, at the beginning. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know if there was a tuck shop at those days. I'm a little bit ahead of you there.
I was going to say, could have been because when I got there, we bought them at the school.
Yeah, and the Towers Plaza, of course. We still call it the Towers Plaza today. We're actually going to the Towers Plaza to look for a new suit for me before the Ranger game tonight. So we'll see how that works out. But what about Consumers Distributing?
Oh, another good one. Yeah, a couple of my buddy used to work there in high school.
And we were talking about it on one of our trips. Shooting the breeze, the guys, sitting there in the motel room, probably snowmobiling. And we went on eBay, and you can actually buy the catalogs. People sell old Consumers Distributing catalogs. Like, isn't that crazy stuff?
That's wild. I love it. It.
Anyway, we'll see you tonight at the game. Let's get those nights tonight.
All right, Rick. Thanks for the call. Good to hear from you. Hey, I wanted to see you in your new suit at the game tonight then. Come on. Dress yourself up for a big Tuesday night game at the Odd. You think about Consumers Distributing, and I think, was it the Star? But there was a fantastic in-depth story written about the demise of Consumers Distributing. And when you think about it, wasn't that almost the forerunner to online shopping, right? Catalog shopping, go in, pick up, and off you go. So back to the phones. Ernie, good morning.
Towers, everything connects.
Oh, my gosh, everything connects. I forgot that. Yes.
That's the jingle.
That's the jingle. You nailed it. Can you play that on the tuba, though?
Yeah, I got to figure that one out. The best ones for me. Mom, used to go. It was always Kmart.
Yep.
Eaton's. That's where I got my 2 bicycles when I was a kid. I remember that. Dad would go up. We would walk up. At that time, we didn't have a car, and it was closer because we lived on Ottawa. So we would walk up on King Street at Robinson.
There you go.
And just grab a couple bikes there.
Perfect.
Yeah, my first banana bike that they had.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Ernie, thanks for that. And you know what that made me think of too? I don't know why, but how about Bargain Heralds? Do you remember the Bargain Heralds stores back in the day? Kathy, good morning.
Good morning. I'm laughing over the Bargain Herald.
Bargain Heralds, yes.
Do you remember Byway?
Sure, I remember Byway.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember Kresge's?
Kresge's, there's another good one, a classic from our community, eh?
When I was a kid, we lived out in the country. And downtown Preston didn't have much in the way of a department store back in those days. So the big trip to the city was King Street, Kitchener.
There you go.
You had Gowdy's,
yep.
You had Eaton's, you had Kresge's, and then you had Woolworth, which changed into Woolco.
It became
that was something then.
Wasn't it a Byway before? Like, it's still there under some name. I'm certain of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Towers was there.
Yeah.
One of my mother's cousins worked at Towers for years too.
Fantastic.
And then we had the Kmart, but Kresge's and some of those others came before.
Kathy, I love it. Great memories of some local stores. By the way, Kathy mentions Gowdy's, and I wanted to mention this to you because you probably know that the museum in downtown Kitchener is at the site of the former Gowdy's department store, and they're having a Gowdy's Day at the museum in downtown Kitchener on March the 30th. So as we're reminiscing about those department stores we used to walk through, you might want to mark down March the 30th from 10 until 2 at the museum in downtown Kitchener. Visit themuseum.ca, learn more about Gowdy's Day, and go and enjoy it. There's going to be like a classic famous Gowdy's sticky bun as part of the experience. Come on with your coming on. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I remember over at Westmount Mall, way back in the day, Save Bet, Shop Right.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I also remember on a recent business trip to Australia, they have Woolworths down there.
Still do, eh?
And, yeah, they still do, and it's a going concern. And I remember as a youngster taking the trolley bus, and we go to Gowdy's, Woolworths, Bud's, everything downtown Kitchener. There was places to go in those department stores, and later Eaton's and stuff like that. But now everybody's ordering online, and nobody's going into the malls for stuff, or nobody's going to the department store.
Yeah, it's certainly changed that way, and it's our shopping habits, I think, that have led us to this place, really. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
I used to work at Woolco way back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, there was a cute boy that used to come by and pick up my garbage, and one day he picked it up and accidentally grazed my boob. And
whoa, Michelle, it's a family show.
27 years.
Okay,
now.
well, I guess. I mean, if you're going to, he was quote unquote picking up the garbage. Sure, he was, Michelle.
Unacceptable these days. Yeah, and then we worked there when they turned over into Walmart, and we were offered a 50-cent an hour raise. So that was a big deal.
Wow, that would be a big deal.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, Woolco, Strawberry Street.
Strawberry Street. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks.
All right, enjoy your day. I'm glad. Am I ever glad they got married after that, you know? Racy stuff at the Woolco department store. We're taking a trip down our shopping aisle memory lane. Can I say it that way? I just did. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You know, I was just chatting during that commercial break with our producers, Devin Robertson and Jen Tan, and it occurred to the three of us. Yes, I'm throwing both of you under the bus too, but it's a tea-free Tuesday, right? We're not mentioning the U.S. president's name, and we're not mentioning those things he's implementing on Canada, and because we're taking a break from that. And what do I get for taking a break from that? I get boob touching in aisle 5 at Woolco. Like, come on, what kind? I love you for it. I really do. And then you got married after that when the cute guy picking up the garbage accidentally grazed you. Anyway, I'll leave it right there. That was a fun trip down memory lane, thinking about those department stores that we used to shop at as we reminisce about what appears to be the final days of Hudson's Bay Company as we knew it. What I'd like you to do now, if you could, it's a little bit of an assignment, but I think it's a fun one. Think about those movies that you've seen that foretell the end of the world, you know, like the apocalyptic movies where perhaps an asteroid is going to collide with Earth and that'll be the end of all of us because we were this close. Okay, I'm going to spread my index finger and thumb a little further apart. We were this close to it actually happening. So We'll tell you what happened and then remember those movies that you like so much about the end of the world as we continue with the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio.
It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine.
I mean, it's not quite the end of the world as we know it, but how close did we come anyway? You know that this show is built on the pillars of transparency, accountability, and responsibility. So in the interests of full transparency, I will share with you this little story that my friends and I have long been engaged in. My good buddies and I, when we get together to play cards, which we don't do nearly often enough anymore, but we used to do it on a regular basis. And we would talk about all kinds of things going on in the world. Some nights we would play very few hands of cards and just spend all kinds of time talking about politics or life or whatever might be going on. And we recognize that there is the possibility, however remote, although Hollywood makes us think it's less remote than it actually is, that someday, sometime, there might be some sort of celestial collision, universal collision with the Earth that could lead to our demise. And so my buddies and I created this thing that if we were ever to have something strike the Earth, we want it to only take the stupid people off the planet. The smart people should be allowed to survive. We affectionately referred to it as the comet of stupidity. And every time we were getting together and having a chat and something, quite frankly, really stupid came up, we would just say to one another, come on, comet. Like, we need the comet to eliminate this stupid person and this stupid thing from happening. So my buddies and I have long had the comet of stupidity conversation going. So it might not surprise you that one of those buddies shared with me a little while ago a headline about an asteroid that was on a potential collision course with Earth in the next decade. And what might that look like? Well, we're going to find out as we're joined by Gordon Osinski, who's a professor in Earth and Planetary Science at Western University. And when we talk about this asteroid that we know was detected by our detection systems, Gordon, I'm curious, like, how close did we come to this collision occurring?
Well, I guess, at one point in time, the chances had risen to about kind of 3%. Which is pretty high for these impacts. But the good news even then was that it was 2032. And so it was a few years in the future, and, potentially we would have been able to do something about it.
How often do we detect these sorts of potential collisions?
It is really regularly, which is a good thing, right? Because, NASA and other space agencies do have an increasingly kind of large network covering the sky, detecting asteroids. They've detected, I think it's something like, 95% of asteroids over a kilometer across, which, are the really big ones that would do huge amounts of damage. But the size of asteroid we're talking about here is more in the tens of meters, and, there's literally thousands out there. So thankfully we're detecting lots, and it's only very occasionally that, the kind of alarm bells start ringing that one might be on a collision course with Earth.
How do we go about detecting these asteroids or comets, whatever they may be, that may indeed collide with the Earth? What sorts of systems and technologies do we have?
It's quite complicated and sophisticated, although it starts, with good old-fashioned just observing the night sky. A lot of this is automated now. Most of this is done with telescopes on Earth, so telescopes around the world, and, you take a picture of the night sky. Things don't move. Well, everything is moving, right? But, not very fast. And so you have to take repeat images, and then, things like stars and planets don't move that much. But an asteroid and comets will move significantly, let's say, within, a few days in the night sky. So that's the first thing, is detecting it. And then, you're basically kind of imagine fitting a giant arc to try and figure out what the orbit of that asteroid is.
I have to think that, these sorts of collisions happen probably more than the average bear realizes. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, and it really depends on your, I guess, outlook. I'm a geologist, that's my research, and, I tend to think on long time scales of, millions, even billions of years. And so on that time scale, asteroid and cometary impacts are pretty common. Something the size of this one that could have formed a crater, 1 or 2 kilometers across, we think will form every few tens of thousands of years. And so, it's one of those things that, our human species at this evolved stage hasn't been on Earth that long. If we continue to be, we are going to have to deal with these kinds of events fairly regularly.
You said, we think every tens of thousands of years. How exact is the science or the data that we're working with here?
It's not very exact, for sure. One of the big issues is, so I do look to the past at asteroids and comets that are struck. But the Earth is, so geologically active that they tend to get erased away. And, of course, 70% of our planet is covered in ocean. And so we really have no way of detecting the smaller ones. If an asteroid 50 meters across had landed in the ocean 5,000 years ago, we pretty much have no record of it. And so it's really, it's not very statistically accurate. But that's the best we have right now.
Can you give us a sense, Gordon, of the destruction that would have been caused had this most recent asteroid we're talking about a month ago ultimately collided with the Earth in 2032? Because it was a pretty large diameter, as I recall.
Yeah, so this is another region or another part of this story that we don't know. We don't have the specifics. So, if you can imagine, they're detecting these objects, hundreds of thousands of kilometers away in space. The estimate we have is anywhere between 40 to 90 meters across. If they took more measurements, that would go down, but that's the estimate we have. And it turns out that that's right on the cusp of, potentially not too much destruction or a lot of destruction. So if we took the upper limit of 90 meters, we can do some calculations, and that would have formed an impact crater maybe almost 3 kilometers across. And, something on the order of 400 to 500 square kilometers of area around that crater would have been, completely destroyed. So, that would easily take out a city. If it was on the smaller side, you may have heard about fireballs and things in the news too. As an asteroid gets smaller, there's a bigger chance of it actually exploding in the Earth's atmosphere before it hits the ground. And that has kind of both good and bad aspects. The good is that it might not form a crater on the ground, but you could get a giant kind of air blast in the atmosphere. And so, this is on the cusp of, if it occurred over a populated area, causing, hundreds of thousands of deaths.
Are there impact craters on the Earth now that we are aware of and we could even see?
Yeah. There's and this is a big part of my research. And so we now know of about 201 to be exact. And, if you or anyone else is interested, you can go to a website that we host here at Western University called Impact Earth. And it's just www.impactearth.com. And I try to keep a database of, all meteorite impact craters on Earth. We find a few each year. That's not ones that have newly formed, but, ones that scientists have discovered in, remote parts of the world. And so that's probably less than 1% of what's hit Earth over the last 4 billion years.
What are you able to learn from the crater, if anything?
Yeah, so, part of it is purely academic, just learning how these things form, because it is unlike any other geological process. It's really a huge high-energy impact event. But a lot of our interests, including mine, are trying to piece together these environmental effects. Many people might be familiar with the big one, Chicxulub in Mexico, that we think wiped out the dinosaurs and 65% of species on Earth about 65 million years ago. And so, we pieced together based on what we find in the crater, what we find around it, what we find across the globe after these events. And we try to see how it affects, the atmosphere, how it affected life, that kind of thing.
So you did a good job explaining earlier the technologies that we have at our disposal to detect these possible collisions. But if I could play the what if game here, Gordon, I don't want to get to Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck on you here, but but what if? What if we realize that, oh my gosh, this is on a collision course, this had been on a collision course with Earth in 2032. Do we have any mechanism of defense, for example?
Yeah, of course, a great, depending on your perspective, movie. There's been quite a lot of Hollywood movies, right, that have explored this. Some, I would say, more realistic than others, of course. But I think, the good news is that NASA, again, and the World Space Agencies are starting to put, significant resources and thought into this. And it was just a couple of years ago, actually, in September 2022, when there was this DART mission. And that actually stands for a kind of asteroid rendezvous and technology. But the goal of that mission was to see if we could deflect an asteroid off its path. So not to destroy it, not to blow it up, but to see if we could get a spacecraft close enough. They fired a small projectile at the asteroid, and they were successful in essentially changing its orbit. And we think this is probably the safest thing to do, is to, try and detect an asteroid and through various mechanisms change its orbit so that it wouldn't intersect with Earth.
Absolutely incredible stuff. And so glad we could get your expertise on the show today. Gordon, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much. You're welcome.
Gordon Osinski is at Western University, where he's a professor in Earth and planetary science. We came that close, if you will, to a collision with an asteroid in 2032. And based on the size, like the chances got up to 1 in 32, which is well above the average chances of one being involved in a car crash in a given year. So things were pretty serious for a moment, far less serious now. But it makes me think of those movies which I just quite frankly can't help but watch. The movies that foretell of some sort of end of our existence as we know it. I made reference to Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck there, so Armageddon, where we actually tried to intercept that asteroid that was hurtling towards Earth. I didn't love that one, but The Day After Tomorrow I kind of liked. I keep watching again and again. That's the one where we basically plunge into a new ice age. Or how about Deep Impact, where a comet is set to collide with the Earth and cause an extinction-level event? I really dug that one, too. Morgan Freeman as the president, Téa Leoni as the reporter that breaks the story. I kind of liked that one. What about you? The end-of-the-world movies that you just can't get enough of. Maybe you can enlighten me on a new one. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The goal of that mission was to see if we could deflect an asteroid off its path. So not to destroy it, not to blow it up, but to see if we could get a spacecraft close enough. They fired a small projectile at the asteroid, and they were successful in essentially changing its orbit. And we think this is probably the safest thing to do.
Straight out of Hollywood, we are working on the possibility of deflecting an asteroid that might be on a collision course with Earth away from us so that we as a planet and a species can be saved. That's Gordon Osinski, who's a professor in Earth and planetary science at Western University. There was a 1 in 32 chance for at least a moment that an asteroid, and a rather large one, could collide with Earth in 2032. Crisis averted for now, but it got me thinking about those movies that we just can't get enough of, that, Deep Impact, The Day After Tomorrow, some of my favorites. I didn't dig Armageddon, which was kind of the plot of the conversation we just had, but I'm here to hear your favorite end-of-the-world movies at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. It's a beautiful sunny day, and I don't see any asteroids right now.
Don't look up, Lisa. Don't look up.
That's exactly the movie I was going to tell you to watch if you haven't seen it.
Absolutely have.
Okay, it's definitely not a child friendly version of the story, but it's got a lot of laughs and it's got some things to think about too. So one of the ones, I think it was maybe made during COVID, so a little bit on the quirky side, but it's definitely I thought it was worth watching. So. It's a subject that you don't necessarily like to think about, and I guess it's probably better if it hits right where you are rather than you have to live through the aftermath, but always something to think about.
Absolutely. So. Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate that. And yes, Don't Look Up was a good one for sure. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing today?
Good, thanks.
Excellent. I got a couple for you. How about Stephen King's The Stand or World War Z?
You know what? Both. World War Z, I'm vaguely remembering, but The Stand, absolutely fantastic. And boy, Lisa just mentioned the pandemic. Hello, how about the cough heard around the world, right?
Exactly.
Good stuff, Steve. Good stuff. Appreciate the call this morning. Like to hear from you. It's better to watch it in a movie. And as Lisa said, it's probably better if you're in the flight path of that approaching asteroid or comet, so you don't have to deal with the aftermath like Will Smith did in his apocalyptic movie, right? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just before our 10:30 update in the 570 News Center, quickly back to the phones. Sean, tell me about that movie about the end of the world.
For me, it's the Day of the Triffids. I've been scared to watch a meteor shower ever since I saw it. Let me tell you.
Sean, I love it. The Day of the Triffids. Yes, and now you're afraid to watch a meteor shower. Listen, it's a little bit of fun Hollywood style, but as we learned this morning from Gordon Osinski at Western University, we were closer than we've been in a long time to an asteroid colliding with Earth. The good news is we had about 7 years warning, and we've got the technology to maybe even deflect a future occurrence, a future asteroid collision with this Earth. But fun stuff to think about, especially when we tie it into Hollywood movies. Just make it happen after I'm gone, okay? Because I can't take the suspense anymore. An update from the 570 News Center, and then you want big? How about mega? The Mega Jackpot is underway. It's growing, and we're going to tell you how you can win it. Plus the other things you can win along the way. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, as you just heard in that update with our boy Hutch in the 570 News Center, it's game day, baby. Game day. Kitchener Rangers, London Knights tonight. Don Cameron Potato Night. Don was famous for saying, sure, you can bring a bag of potatoes, but the paper money is a lot easier to carry. So we will support the House of Friendship when we go to the game tonight. And we will also see a big, and I mean really big number on the board when it comes to the 50-50 draw at the Rangers game, because there is a guaranteed jackpot of $25,000 as we head to the end of this season. It's the season-ending Mega Jackpot with Rangers Reach. Executive Director Craig Campbell joins me in studio. Morning, pal.
Good morning, Mike.
We talked about this last week on our post-game show, Rangers Talk, after the Rangers North Bay game. You opened ticket sales then, and already on the scoreboard at Center Ice, I could see a $25,000 jackpot. So let's go back to the beginning. For those that missed it on Rangers Talk last Friday, what's going on?
Yeah, we've been doing it annually now. I think this might be our third or fourth season where we're running a big event in the month of March, and it's trying to generate some hype before the playoffs. So we called it Mega Jackpot. Why? Because the jackpot is mega. Last year it was over 53,000 winner take home. And, we're shooting. We've got big aspirations. We'd like to beat that number this year. And we kicked it off right after the game Friday night at 10 o'clock. that 25,000's up on the board, and the sooner we reach that mark, the amount will increment, but it's guaranteed at 25,000.
And the sooner we reach that mark, you can wipe a little bit of the sweat off your brow.
I don't really have any sweat. It's guaranteed by our provider. It's part of the deal we have, and we're grateful for Bump to do that. I think what it does is it gets people's awareness that, wow, that's a big jackpot. I want in, and we want people to get in early. That's why we put up some pretty good early bird prizes and a consolation prize to boot. And I don't know, I didn't plug it last week, but look if you're in the province of Ontario, whether it's Windsor, Oakville, Kingston, Ottawa, even Sault Ste. Marie, we take all those cities' money at par. You can buy online at rangers5050.com. Have your chance at these great prizes, the big jackpot. Plus, there's over 9,000 in supplemental prizing for this, and we're really excited.
That's right. To our friends in Sault Ste. Marie, your money is accepted in Rangers Reach 50/50 at par. So rangers5050.com. Right now, you can buy tickets, and you mentioned, Craig, those early bird prizes. So when you buy a ticket at rangers5050.com, or maybe when you're at the game tonight, you can win the big jackpot, which will be awarded on Friday, and last year was more than $53,000. But you can also win an early bird prize along the way and still be in for that big jackpot. I don't want people to forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. Every ticket purchased before an early bird deadline, or even at the very end of the draw, every ticket purchased before those draws tonight is in for every draw, right through the jackpot and consolation. So we encourage you to get your tickets early and beat that deadline so that you increase your chances of winning, right? There's two really great prizes tonight. Okay. We've got our first draw is a suite for the first Rangers home playoff game, which is coming up next Friday already. So just a week from Friday. And our second prize, who doesn't like cash? So we thought 5,000 cash is a pretty good early bird prize, right? I think 5,000 would probably mirror a lot of jackpots across our league, maybe even beat them. So it's not a slouch, but we are pushing for that big Friday prize. And we have an early bird on Friday at 5 o'clock. So if you get in, purchase your ticket before Friday at 5, have a chance to win a pair of 25-26 Ranger season tickets. You can see every game. You can participate in every draw if you like for the 25-26 season. And then obviously we have the jackpot, but right before we draw for the jackpot, we've got a great prize that I know you're interested in, and that's an autographed with certificate of authenticity Austin Matthews blue Leaf jersey. So
he scored twice last night, baby. Twice for my boy Austin Matthews. There you go.
Maybe he's got the feel in, right? So we just thought that was a great addition for us from our regular consolation prize. That's a really great value and a lot of high interest. So we wanted to get that in our raffle. And thanks to MLSE Foundation for helping us.
That's absolutely incredible stuff. And, not to pick on Owen Sound, but we were just there and you mentioned that $5,000 cash prize, which is an early bird prize to be awarded tonight. Their jackpot, and you said that's like a lot of jackpots around the league for a regular game. This is just an early bird incentive. The jackpot in Owen Sound on Saturday was around 4,400. So there you go.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So I don't know any of my friends or colleagues who, if they had somebody want to hand them 5,000 tax free, that would say no. I don't know anyone who would say no. So it's a great prize. You can take a nice trip. You can do a lot of stuff with that, and then you can hope you win the big one on Friday too, because your number stays in.
So you mentioned a moment ago, Craig, that anytime you buy a ticket before one of the early bird draws, you're in for those early bird draws plus the big jackpot. Is the first early bird that $5,000 cash prize tonight?
The first early bird is the suite. Is the suite.
Okay.
They're both drawn at the same time.
Today?
Today.
Okay.
Tonight at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
At the game. So we're depending on where the game is in its play time, we will try to get those numbers up on the board if we can tonight. But they will be on our website at rangers5050.com. You can just hit winning numbers up at the top. They're all populated there automatically. And you'd be in for every draw.
Okay, Rangers5050.com. Right now, ticket sales are open. That suite for the first playoff game, which will be a week on Friday, which is incredible. One of the early bird prizes. $5,000 cash, one of the early bird prizes. Then you look ahead to Friday. You've got a pair of 25-26 seasons tickets for the Kitchener Rangers and the Austin Matthews autographed jersey.
Yeah, plus the big prize.
Because when we walk in, this is the thing. So we'll get to the rink tonight. We'll do our usual 50-50 buying, which is great. You're in for the $5,000 prize. You're in for the possibility of that suite, all those other early bird prizes we just mentioned. But then the big jackpot, when we walk in on Friday night, we're likely going to walk into an arena that already has more than $25,000 on the board.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Because that generates some buzz. And it's the last, Friday being the last regular season home game for the 24-25 campaign. Lots going on. It's always traditionally fan appreciation night. Hey, we just want to highlight, like, get in. Let's get that jackpot over 25 before Friday's game, because we have to remember the other half of that does things in our community, like our $90,000 donation to Child Witness Center, like a $100,000 contribution to Kids Ability. We want to keep doing more of those things. $50,000 to the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region. These are all needy organizations with great programming in our community. And we want to be able to support that. And we do that with the power of Rangers Reach 50-50.
We have some fun buying the tickets. We have some fun watching the jackpots get big. But as Craig just mentioned, there is a tremendous community impact. We'll continue talking about that community impact. And I've got rules on this show when it comes to the team that shall not be named. But I will make exceptions in some very important cases, and this is one of them. You'll find out what it is coming up. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In studio this morning with Craig Campbell, who's the executive director of Rangers Reach. The Mega Jackpot is growing as we speak. It's a guaranteed prize of $25,000. I have no doubt, like last year, it will go above. Last year, we finished just north of $53,000 in the jackpot. It's going to be awarded on Friday during the Rangers' final regular season home game. Ticket sales open right now at Rangers5050.com. Early bird prizes aplenty. If you buy your ticket today, you're in for all of these early bird prizes plus the big jackpot to be awarded on Friday. The early bird prizes, a suite for the Rangers' first home playoff game a week from this Friday. $5,000 in cash. An autographed Austin Matthews Toronto Maple Leafs jersey or a set of 25-26 Kitchener Rangers seasons tickets. Those are just the early bird prizes. And then there's the big jackpot. If you get in right now at Rangers5050.com, you're eligible for all of it. That includes, of course, the purchases you make at the game tonight. And Craig, you mentioned before the break, I mean, the Child Witness Center, a big donation there, Kids Ability, the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region. These are the kinds of organizations that are supported by our 50-50 purchases in our community. And it must give all of you at Rangers Reach just, the fullest of buckets.
Yeah, my heart's full every time we get to write a check for somebody. And we're actually going to do another check presentation tonight, kind of ironic with Don Cameron Potato Night. But people might remember back in December, we did our holiday bonus raffle to support House of Friendship. So we've got a check for House of Friendship tonight that we'll do at the game. And I will throw another plug in. Starting in the playoffs, we're going to have our playoff bonus raffle. We'll be back. And it's going to support Camino well-being and mental health. So these are things in our community that we recognize, especially in these times, we need to support. We need to have those resources there for young and old to be able to have those things to rely on. And not everybody has the privilege that I have every day to have food on my table and a roof over my head. So I try and use that lens to make sure that we're taking care of everybody else too.
I think it's a great way to look at it. And as I said before, we have a lot of fun, getting in on the raffle and thinking about $25,000, $50,000, even the $12,000, standard jackpots in Kitchener, things like that. But that's also an equivalent amount going to organizations in our community in need, which is terrific. Okay, I also mentioned before the break that I have rules on this show, Craig, and I have a lot of them today. We're having a U.S. president and the things he's implementing free Tuesday here on the show. And there's a team that I refuse to mention because I'm a Leafs fan, and that team shouldn't even exist as far as I'm concerned. But I will make exceptions because I got all the time in the world for how hard this former Kitchener Ranger worked. He was undrafted into the Ontario Hockey League. He was undrafted into the National Hockey League. I'm talking about Arbor Jackeye, who's just a great story, and he ties into a big opportunity on Friday night.
Yeah, in fact, it's kind of ironic. He was in the news a little bit yesterday because he was having a kerfuffle with somebody at practice. So
shocking.
Yeah, I just thought, hey, that's a great lead-in. Yeah, we do. For those who come down to the auditorium on game night, they know that we do our jersey raffle for the Rangers, game-worn jersey raffle. And on Friday, we thought we have an opportunity because we were gifted a Montreal Canadiens Arbor Jackeye red jersey, fully autographed with a COA from the Canadiens Foundation. And we thought, let's have our fans an opportunity to get in on that. So we're going to feature that on our jersey raffle Friday night. And again, just like our 50-50, you can go online, you can be anywhere in Ontario. So you can be up in Cornwall, Ottawa, close to the region, and you can be down in Hamilton, Brantford. Hey, we'd love to have you get on board and have a chance to win this gem. It's beautiful. So rangersjersey.com. Those sales will open Thursday night at 8 p.m. for Friday's game. And I think it's exciting.
It certainly is. And I got to wonder, Craig, I mean, how, with all these balls in the air, early bird prizes, mega jackpots, jersey raffles, MLSE and their support, the Canadiens Foundation, how do you at Rangers Reach keep all of this stuff straight?
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on all of it. But there's some other stuff we're working on that'll kick off in the playoffs as well. So it's just making sure that we have, I want to make sure that we have balls in the air that we can juggle, right? If we don't, that would concern me. I want to make sure that we have things that we can do that are new and exciting to get our fans engaged. And again, we want to power community giving here through those fundraising efforts at our games. And that's really important to me. It's important to our volunteers, our staff. I know it's important to the Rangers staff as well. We want to continue. We have a high bar that we have to uphold. And last year, when the Ontario Hockey League awarded the Rangers and Rangers Reach Community Team of the Year honors, we don't take that lightly. We'd like to keep that here. So that's why we keep working hard and make sure that we have lots of interesting new innovation type ideas happening. And, we're open to it all, whether it's mystery puck or raffles or whatever. We just want everyone to be engaged.
I want to goose that jackpot before Friday. Another jackpot that I won't win, but that's okay. Rangers5050.com. Right now, if you get your tickets before the game tonight, you're still in for all of those early bird prizes plus the big jackpot, guaranteed at $25,000. It'll definitely be more. So like I said, let's goose it right now. Rangers5050.com. Always good to see you. Thanks for bringing coffee too, buddy.
Hey, I want to make sure that you take care of us by helping us get our message out. We got to take care of you too.
You do more than enough, and the coffee is definitely appreciated. I'll see you at the rink tonight.
You betcha.
Craig Campbell, Executive Director of Rangers Reach. Rangers5050.com. The mega jackpot sales are open right now. This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Game day, baby. Look out my studio window to a bright blue, sunny sky. It's playoff weather. And it's almost playoff time. A week this Friday, the Rangers will open the OHL playoffs, likely against the Flint Firebirds. Some math left to determine that for sure, but I think it's going to be Flint. Either way, big game tonight against the London Knights as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. I would like to extend my sincere thanks and congratulations as we're at the halfway point of the show and you have followed the rules extremely well. We have declared this a T&T free Tuesday. You know, the T's that we're hearing so much about that it's almost overwhelming. The one T who's in the Oval Office in Washington. The other T, those things that he's been implementing on Canada, causing a great deal of economic concern and uncertainty. Yeah, those T's. We're not mentioning them on the show today, but we are also not issues and news free, of course. We're just steering clear of those particular words. I don't know if you heard any of the exchange between Prime Minister Mark Carney and reporters at his media event in France yesterday, but it got a little testy, would be the word I use, and I'm wondering this about that. Is the mainstream media really biased? Like, do you believe that? Do you still believe that after the exchange that occurred yesterday between Prime Minister Carney and the mainstream media? You'll hear it, and we'll talk about it next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If you were listening to the show yesterday, and I know you were, you loyal listener, you really do appreciate you spending some of your time with us here on the show every day, whether it's for 4 minutes or the full 4 hours. It really is appreciated. I know there is a lot of competition for that time, but I always appreciate our opportunities here to engage in conversation around the issues of the day. And the big one, the one that just won't go away, the one that you hear every time you turn on the radio or pick up a newspaper or turn on the television, we're kind of steering clear from today. We need a break from the man who leads the government in the United States and those things he's been implementing on Canada and Mexico, et cetera. We're just going to take a break from that. But we've got our own issues here, don't we? And yesterday when the show started, we got a call from Paul. And if you know Paul, if you listen to the show regularly, Paul is a long time and regular listener, and he is of a right of center political bent. And he was quite upset that our newly minted prime minister, unelected, and Paul's not wrong about that, made his first order of business to jet set around the world and now finds himself in France and the UK, does Prime Minister Carney. I would submit to you trying to maintain strong relations, maybe connect on new opportunities that might exist in the future. But along with being unelected, we have to remember that Mark Carney, now our prime minister, has spent a lifetime in the private sector and has accumulated through the work that he does and has done considerable wealth, such that there are concerns around conflicts of interest that might arise from this considerable wealth that Mark Carney has amassed now that he is the prime minister, and would have the opportunity, of course, to set policy, engage in commitments with certain organizations or companies that might benefit those considerable assets he has accumulated. So Prime Minister Carney has followed the rules of our ethics commissioner here in Canada, has placed his holdings, save for real estate, into a blind trust. The interesting thing about the blind trust is you know what goes in, and then you just let somebody else manage it, but you know what's in there. And so could that in any way create a conflict around decisions that Mark Carney might make as Prime Minister? I think these are fair questions, and they were asked of Prime Minister Carney when he was taking questions from the media yesterday in France. The first voice you'll hear, and I think it comes through pretty clearly, is a reporter from the Globe and Mail, and then less clearly, but in the background, you'll hear Rosemary Barton from the CBC questioning Prime Minister Carney. If you haven't heard it yet, this is what it sounded like.
Mr. Carney, Stephanie Levitz, Globe and Mail. We understand that you have now placed your assets in a blind trust, so you don't know what's happening to them going forward, but you knew what they were going into that blind trust. So what are they?
Look, Stephanie, I follow the rules of the Ethics Commissioner. I'm following them well in advance of any of the requirements, as you know, because I know you know this. You know that these requirements come into effect in months. We're talking days after I became Prime Minister. So I'm complying with the rules of the Ethics Commissioner, going through the processes and all these things that are necessary. And I will remind you, and I'll remind Canadians again, that the Leader of the Opposition cannot find it. And look, you look at the questions this evening, you look at the nature of the discussions, you look at the nature of discussions I had with the President of France, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The Leader of the Opposition would not be capable of having those discussions because the Leader of Opposition refuses to get his security clearance, something that it took me a few weeks to get. And he has been the Leader of the Opposition for 3 years. So I comply with my responsibilities. I comply with the rules well in advance, and the Leader of the Opposition doesn't take his responsibilities at a time of, well, you should take these responsibilities at any time, but it's particularly remarkable given the stakes in global geopolitics at the moment.
The rules say that those assets should be publicly disclosed within 120 days, which means you'll campaign in a coming federal election, most likely within the next 120 days, and are serving as Prime Minister now, with Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought to avoid.
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Point final.
Are you saying you are not open to any conflict of interest?
Yes.
Someone who spent most of his life in the private sector, there's no possible conflict of interest in your assets. It's very difficult to believe.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary. I mean, you start from a prior of conflict and ill will. I have served in the private sector. I have stood up for Canada. I have left my roles in the private sector at a time of crisis for our country. I'm complying with all the rules. Your line of questioning is trying to invent new rules. I'm complying with the rules that Parliament has laid out and the responsibilities of the Ethics Commissioner. And I will continue to comply with those rules.
Your line of questioning is trying to create new rules. That line of questioning from the CBC's Rosemary Barton, who said it's very difficult to believe that there's no possibility that there could be a conflict of interest within these assets you have placed into a blind trust, to which Prime Minister Carney says, Rosemary, look inside yourself. That might be a wee bit, wouldn't you say, on the condescending side? And then when Stephanie Levitz from the Globe and Mail also inquired as to the assets and any potential conflict of interest and the fact that the 120-day period will include the campaign period, meaning the Liberal leader will be campaigning when nobody knows what is contained within that blind trust. Stephanie, I know you know this. A little bit testy on the part of Prime Minister Carney. Do you have any concerns about this as we are absolutely headed into a federal election in the next couple of months? And more to the point, I'm curious about this because one of those questions, the follow-up from Stephanie Levitt's question from the Globe and Mail, came from Rosemary Barton of the CBC. You know the CBC, right? That left-leaning propaganda machine, as critics like to call it, just a shill for the Liberal government. Does Rosemary Barton's questioning sound as though she's a shill for the Liberal government when she was questioning directly, suggesting that there's no possibility of a conflict of interest? I find that difficult to believe, Mr. Prime Minister. That from a CBC journalist to the Liberal Prime Minister of Canada. I know, along with the criticisms of the CBC being some sort of left-leaning propaganda machine, there have also been criticisms that the media in this country is biased. Does that sound biased to you? Would love to hear your thoughts, as always. I think we've got a fair line of questioning here. And I think we have experienced, talented journalists in the mainstream media asking those questions. Your thoughts, 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Concerns about what's in that blind trust? And is the mainstream media really biased? I mean, really? Is it, though? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Prime Minister Carney, while visiting France yesterday, held a media availability during which he faced some pretty tough questions around his assets, which are considerable. We know this. He worked at a pretty high level and made a substantial amount of money in private life. And anyone that spends as much time as he did in private life before moving into this public life as our prime minister, unelected as he may be, clearly would have accumulated assets doing the kinds of jobs that he was doing. So those assets go into a blind trust. But questions are being asked about, well, what is in that blind trust? And how can we be assured that you do not have any conflict of interest in your job? And it was a pretty testy exchange, I would say, between Mr. Carney and the journalists, Stephanie Levitz from the Globe and Mail and Rosemary Barton from, of all places, the CBC, in that media conference yesterday. One other thing I didn't mention before the break, in the first line of questioning from Stephanie Levitz from the Globe and Mail, Prime Minister Carney did an excellent job. And I mean this strictly from a strategic perspective, but don't answer the question that you were asked. Answer the question you wish you were asked, or do something else to kind of turn it around. And rather than comment at all about what's in that blind trust, Mark Carney turned it into a shot at opposition leader Pierre Poilievre, who has not yet received his security clearance. He said, it took me 4 days to get my security clearance. The leader of the opposition has had 3 years. So good job there. I mean, really, we want questions to be answered. I get that. Not just journalists, but Canadians. You want to hear answers to the questions that are being asked. But Mark Carney is not the first politician to not answer a question and instead turn it into a statement about a point he wants to make. He did a good job of that, strategically speaking, but it was a feisty exchange yesterday. 519-570-2545, star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. I would hope that hearing questions like this, particularly from Rosemary Barton at the CBC, can minimize any concerns anyone might have over some sort of bias in the media. Those were hard questions from a CBC journalist aimed at a Liberal Prime Minister. Steve on the phone with us this morning. Morning, Steve.
Good morning. So, Carney, his answer was just classic. But, I mean, in all fairness, it's been a decade. And let's be honest, it's been over a decade that the Liberals in control have answered a single question in the House or anywhere when they're asked like that. But to get back to your question before you went to the break there about bias in the media, that's a broad stroke question, and I will give kudos to the Globe and Mail because them especially over the last few years have actually been pretty pointed in their questions regardless of political ideology. But everyone else, and let's just take your own station, for instance, here, 570, your show. If you look at the history of the people that you have on your show, they are almost always left-leaning. And then you do your Friday 4 every single time, always left-leaning, right? So it's very, very hard to get any kind of centrist message from you guys when you lean so hard to the left.
So you're mistaken on that. In fact, the Friday 4 guests are deliberately selected to bring a cross-section of the political spectrum. And I'll remind you that we have once a week with a dedicated spot on this show, a former Conservative Party staff member. Every week, he's on this show to give his perspective.
Okay, so the one guy, the Friday 4 panel,
yes,
they're almost always like local business owners. You have some, you usually have people from the universities. Throughout the rest of the week, anytime you have any kind of political correspondence, you always get people from the universities. We all know which way they lean, and you can tell it in their tone, and you can tell it in their comments. But your Friday 4 panel, I have never heard once anybody disagree on there. It's a weird thing. I've never heard a disagreement. So
there's not a lot of that. I'll give you that for sure.
They're always on the same page when it comes to the same things. So very, very hard to believe that you're actually getting a mixed message on there. I've never heard one.
Are you just suggesting that perhaps, Steve, because it doesn't align with the way you think?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I hear the same thing over and over. Trump bad, always the same things. You're always pushing the same leftist things. And 100%. You can laugh about it.
Well, I am laughing about it because you're so dead wrong. You're so dead. There's actually, I'm sorry. There is one university professor on our Friday Four. So she comes up once every 5 weeks. Like it's crazy to me that you make this claim that's completely baseless. It is.
It's crazy to me that so many people feel the way I do, and you guys deny it.
But this is what I'm saying. But why do you feel that way? Because I'm suggesting to you that maybe you feel that way because you don't hear your views represented.
Well, no, I totally disagree with that.
Okay.
100%.
All right. Well, we'll just disagree on that point then. But that's just a fact. That's an absolute fact. And I would submit to you that business owners actually tend to lean right. They usually do. And yes, we do have business owners on. Scott, good morning.
Good day, how are you?
Good day, I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Hey, I couldn't have sped it any better than the previous caller, Mike. It's the truth, brother. I don't know how you pick them, but that Friday Four roundtable never has really a harsh, especially the Four roundtable. Like, I've often wondered that myself. Like, why are you not picking anyone who really has another view other than the same people, the same university professor, the same this, the same, and they all lean the same, and you kind of just go with the flow. That's all I got to say.
All right, Scott. You know, the Friday Four panel, which is every Friday from 11 until noon, was never designed to be a debate. It's just to hear those different perspectives. And I will again insist to you that they have been deliberately designed so that it brings a cross-section of the political spectrum, truly. In fairness, not everybody is available every time their turn comes up and you start reaching into the bag of fill-ins here and there. But honestly, it's not ever. And David Drew, who gets his own segment every week on the show, with intent, who used to work for the Conservative Party of Canada, also has a spot on the Friday Four panel. So that way, in fact, he was on the show yesterday describing himself as a small C conservative. Anyway, I'm not here to defend what we do. I wanted to know if you thought the mainstream media was still biased based on what you heard yesterday. And I guess you still feel that it is. But I would say in response that I think you feel that way because you're not hearing your own views reflected, which is fair. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Rob has a very good ear. He noticed that in our conversation with Steve a moment ago, Steve said one of the words we're not supposed to say today, but Steve was upset. I decided not to cut him off mid-sentence or play one of the other sound effects that reminded him that we are TNT free this Tuesday. One T is one syllable. The man who leads the White House in Washington. The other T is two syllables. It's the thing that the man in the White House is implementing on Canada and Mexico. We just need a break from those T's on this Tuesday. And so we will continue our TNT free Tuesday here on the show. Right after this update from the 570 News Center, we know that those two-syllable T's are having an impact on our very conscience. What can we do, though, within Waterloo Region itself to shape our housing future? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, once a month here on this show, we make sure to set aside time to talk about one of the biggest issues our community, if not our country, is facing, and that is the housing crisis. We don't have enough of it, and very little of it is affordable enough for folks working in given communities. So when we set aside this time with intent, we reach out to Philip Mills, who's the CEO at Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, to have a conversation about where we're at. Phil, always good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It seems to me that you and I are feeling similarly right now when it comes to one of the T words that we're trying so hard to avoid on the show today. And I noticed this over the weekend when there was a news channel on the TV and I walked back into the living room and there we are talking again about the impact of these things that have been applied to Canadian goods and Mexican goods. And you know what I'm getting at here. But I wonder, in these times where it feels like everything is spinning out of our control and maybe we feel a little helpless, what do you do, Philip Mills, to kind of center yourself in all of this?
Yeah, I like to start thinking about what's within my control. Like when I think about politics as it stands right now and our friends, neighbors, frenemies, whatever the those to the south are on any given day. And I think about more elections, the federal election likely coming. We just had a provincial, all of that is important and impacts me. But I don't feel like I can touch that. I don't feel like I can change it. And when things start to feel like they're beyond me, outside of my grasp, outside of my reach, I start to kind of say, okay, what can I touch? It's almost like, when you're feeling your head starts to spin and somebody says, just ground yourself, feel the ground beneath you. Or if you're chronically online and somebody tells you, maybe it's time to touch some grass outside. This idea of what is right in front of me, what is local. And so as we think about the T word and we think about elections and all of that sort of stuff, I'm driven back to what is right here. What can I see? What can I touch? What is happening in my local community? Because that's the thing I feel like I can get my hands around. That's something I can impact. That's something that, can change.
And, since you mentioned elections, and before we get into more of the things that we can see change and maybe are seeing change here in the region, one thing that we can do to exert some influence when it comes to those elections is, actually going out and casting a ballot. What an idea.
Oh, it's so important. And I kind of say that there's that, this sort of juxtaposition to I feel like this out of control. Voting is so important. Taking part in that process is so important. But I also kind of that balance of every vote counts, but one vote doesn't make or break. But if all of us took that perspective, we would be in a terrible space. And so it needs to be something to be a part of. It's something, a privilege we've been granted that, we don't take lightly. But I also realize that, as one person in a country this size, I will not make the final decision. I will not make the final call. And so while participating, and I think importantly, as we all ought, what can I have some say? What can my words, impact? What can my actions truly have an impact on? Because right now, some of the other stuff just seems too far gone.
As one person, Phil, in a region this size, who just so happens to be the leader of a nonprofit organization that's in the housing space, what do you see us doing here in Waterloo Region around the crisis that is housing that gives you reason for optimism?
I think we have leaned into what everybody talks about. If you talk to people from the region, you talk to people who are outside of this region, there's this idea that we're innovative. This idea that we do things differently. And sometimes it almost feels like a trope that we say, Waterloo Region is different, but it is. But saying it all the time sometimes feels a bit overstated, but we are. And so I think we're doing something innovative. We are trying. We see municipalities really putting effort, energy, resource into trying to address housing. I cannot say enough about what the city of Kitchener and the city of Waterloo have done. They partnered with Habitat and with Build Now to try and bring over 1,000 homes into the region. They're donating, working on the donation of land to create more housing. They don't have the resources of the provincial government. They certainly don't have the resources of the federal government. But working with what they've got, they've said, we're going to do something to make where we are today different. And I think that's the type of stuff that excites me. That's the stuff that gives me hope, because knowing that there are things we can do locally, that things that are local politicians, our local businesses, we can impact and we can do here to make things better where we live.
And one of the things about that, you mention how, and I think we often say it, and I've lived in other communities too, that also proclaimed they were the very best at one thing or another thing. Maybe they had the best volunteers, or there's no spirit like the Salmon Arms spirit, to reference a place I used to live. But when it comes to this particular innovation, Phil, one of the things I love about it is the cross-section of folks who are involved. We've got municipalities that are putting up parcels of land that we can build on. We've got Habitat for Humanity involved in this. We've got the development and trades community involved in this. The chambers of commerce are behind it. It's going to take that kind of collaboration to really solve a problem as big as housing.
It's the type of thing that we always talk about, we wish we saw. So often we see that, why is nothing bipartisan anymore? Why does nothing get done? Why won't the federal government work with the provincial government? And why won't this party work with that? Or why don't people get together to do things anymore? Well, we are. And I think that's why we get to be encouraged as a local community. We have something happening here that isn't happening everywhere. We have the chamber, we have local business, we have municipalities, we have for-profit and not-for-profit. We have a whole bunch of really smart and really dedicated folks coming together saying, like, no matter what's going on in the world beyond us, no matter what's happening south of the border or north of the border, no matter what's happening around us right now, we're going to do something that is going to not just make an impact on one of the biggest issues today, something that makes us stable, something that makes this community successful in the future. The investment in housing is this fascinating thing where when housing is affordable, this isn't like a one-time sort of benefit. It's like, hey, if this is going to be affordable, it's going to make employment easier. It's going to be easier to draw in employment. It's going to be easier to draw in business. All of those things making us more resilient, making us, I don't want to say the word, but that idea that like whatever somebody else does, we can respond because we are resilient. We have resource here. We have business and economy, and we have homes and housing. Like all of those things come together to create the type of community that no matter what happens elsewhere, no matter what those things that are beyond our touch and outside our borders happen, we're going to be in a good space. We will be thriving here because we've taken kind of control of our own destiny. And so that makes things really exciting to me. I think this is that step of controlling our destiny for a brighter future. Like that's the stuff that gives me hope when all the other bits are outside of my control.
Did you ever think that we'd be having a conversation along the lines of healthcare workers, education workers can't afford the housing in our community? Like that's still something that I have to sit back and pause for a moment when I think about.
I try not to become jaded to it or to become desensitized perhaps to the reality of this, that the folks that are saying, I can't afford housing, are doing all of the work and went and did the things that when I was in school, we said, hey, if you want to have a good job, if you really want to be able to, be stable, get into these professions. And they did, and they can't afford to live here. And I think like that is never going to stop being a galling sort of reality that we're trying to address something that is so beyond what any of us would have guessed. So beyond, and so I think we do need innovation. We do need something different because we are facing a challenge I don't think any of us ever saw or expected. And so how do we do that? How do we make the community? Because the community doesn't work without the people who live here. Like the community isn't what it should be if we don't have the tradesperson, the PSW, a nurse, a teacher, your servers at your local restaurants. Like I think about all the things that I love about the community and the things you want to go and do, the way that you participate in community. It takes people. It takes community to participate in community. And if they can't afford to live here, all those things that kind of connect us and bind us together start to really fray. And so having these opportunities, the communities, the cities saying, we're going to make sure that our community is stable, that people can live here, that this is a place that can thrive, is important to our thriving as a community and important to this bright future that then makes us a little resilient to all of the external pressures and changes that, best as we can do, we will respond to, but we certainly can't change.
We have just come through a provincial election. I fully expect, Phil, that we'll be into a federal election in the next several weeks. What does this mean for Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region? Do you wait for the dust to settle, so to speak, and then, look at the new lay of the land? How does Habitat for Humanity exist in these somewhat uncertain political spaces?
Well, kind of back to where we started. I get to focus on what's happening right here. If there are new MPs voted in, or if there are the MPs that have been here before, the vote goes through. We reach out and we say, hey, we've been here, we're going to be here. How do we work together to make here better? And so we just plug away and work at knowing that what we're doing is important, what we're doing resonates with the community. And we hope and expect that our politicians that are voted in are going to care deeply about their community. And so getting their attention and getting them to buy into what we do ought not be that hard, because we know this is what we need.
Always appreciate the conversations, Phil, and certainly the work that you and the team do. Thanks very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Philip Mills is the CEO at Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. He joins us on the third Tuesday of every month here on the program to talk about housing in our community. And if you think about it, I'm not going to say it because we are T&T free on the show today. But the two-syllable T that we're avoiding on the show today, if you think about it, you know the impact it's having on the construction industry, right? And Habitat for Humanity wants to build affordable homes for people in Waterloo Region. So absolutely that two-syllable T is having an impact. But we managed to get through the entire conversation without mentioning either one of those T's publicly. We're doing pretty well on this T&T Free Tuesday here on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Reflecting on that conversation we just had with Philip Mills, CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. It's an interesting time, isn't it, when we are really looking inward more than we ever have been before. We're looking at what we can do to keep ourselves whole, if you will. So when things seem to be spinning out of control and there is so much out of our individual control, what can we look at for signs of progress, signs of optimism in the housing space with Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region? I think the Build Now example is an excellent one. We're coming up on 2 years into the 7-year plan. I will remind you to get 10,000 affordable homes, affordable/attainable homes built in this community. But there have been some signs of progress. And the very best part of all of it, from where I'm sitting, is the cross-section of collaborators who are involved, from the development community to trades and construction associations to nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, to our municipal governments, etc. There seems to be an all-hands-on-deck kind of approach to this. And and I'm still going to say if, we can pull it off, it's going to be a really impressive feat. Again, the land's out by Rim Park on University Avenue, the biggest such parcel of land and opportunity for development to date. That'll put a pretty big dent in that commitment to 10,000 homes over the 7 years. But we'll wait for more such announcements to come along. It all makes me think of what the city of Kitchener announced yesterday and its Support Local campaign in response to the, let's just call it, economic uncertainty instead of using one of those T words. But what Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic and other members of council announced yesterday at a media conference when they were decked out in red Canadian elbows up sweaters, they talked about amending Kitchener's procurement bylaw so that we could support, we could support the initiative to buy Canadian and buy local. We could initiate conversations with distributors and contractors on Canadian alternatives for supply. We can prioritize the Canada First supply purchases for smaller dollar items. Strategic outreach with trade-exposed companies and developing new resources on import substitution for local businesses, and launching a Support Local campaign in partnership with local BIAs, the Chambers of Commerce, and the Kitchener Market. These are all lovely ideas. The big question I have is, I know why now, but why didn't we do it before? It just seems as though we were caught a little bit unawares when our so-called friendly neighbor to the south became that much less friendly. But I would have liked to think that these sorts of initiatives were in place long before it became almost essential, right? And I've been beating on this drum for a long time, and I acknowledge my bias in this regard. But I was probably into my 30s for sure. I might have even been in my 40s. Time flies. But when I realized that those machines that come out at a hockey game during the intermission to flood the ice, ever since I was a kid, and I'll bet you did the same thing, you always called them by one name. It's like calling every tissue a Kleenex, right? There are different brands of them. And I didn't know that those ice resurfacing machines called Olympias were made right here in the region of Waterloo, in Elmira. We've got people working, building Olympia ice resurfacing machines at Resurf Ice in Elmira today, as I speak. And once I learned that this brand existed and that it was made in Waterloo Region, I started looking around. And do you know what I don't see on ice surfaces around this region? Olympia ice resurfacing machines. And I ask myself, why not? Why would we have not bought the product right in our own backyard? The time it really struck me was when I saw the other brand come out to clear the ice at Carl's Air Square, the skating rink that's out there. Well, my goodness gracious me. Anyway, I find it curious. I do remember seeing an Olympia in use at Rim Park, and I hope that this new bylaw to support Buy Canadian and Buy Local can see us replace the fleet that we have of that other brand with an Olympia ice resurfacing machine. Again, my bias around hockey notwithstanding, I've just always wondered why we wouldn't. And now that we're where we are, given all of the economic uncertainty, and we're trying to shelter ourselves against future and perhaps greater uncertainty, now we're doing this. I've been asking for years why we don't do it. It's my only concern with what was announced yesterday. This is great. I'm glad we're headed in this direction. Why the hell didn't we head in this direction 20 years ago? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Thank you, Richard, for the email to mike@570news.com. Hespler Arena has Olympia ice resurfacing machines. They get parked in the Olympia room. Oh, I love you, Hespler Arena. See, here's the thing. I know because I know that we use Olympia ice resurfacing machines in Waterloo. And according to Richard, we use them in Hespler/Cambridge. Do you see the biggest city in the region in the middle of those two that kind of skip over the Olympia ice resurfacing machines? Like, come on with your coming on here. Anyway, thanks for letting me know that they're also at the Hespler Arena. It is my dying wish, my career dying wish, because I hope that my career dies before I do. I don't want to necessarily die in the chair, although if I died in this room, it's a pretty nice room. Anyway, my dying wish will be to see an Olympia ice resurfacing machine cruising around in between periods of a Kitchener Rangers game. Who's with me? Can I get an amen? By the way, there is a Kitchener Rangers game tonight. London Knights in town. Rangers Reach was on the show earlier today. The Mega Jackpot sales open. Rangers5050.com. Guaranteed minimum jackpot of $25,000 to be awarded Friday night. But if you buy your tickets now, Rangers5050.com, you're in for all of the early bird prizes, which are spectacular, including a $5,000 cash prize to be awarded tonight. Rangers5050.com. To the 570 News Center we go for an update, and then open lines on your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Can we make it through the final hour without saying T or the other T? It's a T&T free Tuesday on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak,
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight. Or you don't go out Friday night. Jaggedy yak.
Don't talk back.
Each and every day from noon until 1, we open phone lines so we can hear directly from you. It's your Talkback Hour. And you know what? We've done really well today. With the exception of the time we were talking about bias in the mainstream media, and I was feeling rather put upon, and I thought, I've got to defend myself here. I did let Steve sneak in one of the words that we are not saying on the show today. So it is a U.S. president by name free show today. And the things that he has implemented upon us here in Canada and Mexico, he's throwing this word around like it's Halloween candy. You get one of these and you get one of those. And everybody's feeling the economic uncertainty as a result. It just felt so overwhelming that we thought, you know what? We're going to give ourselves a break from it today, and we're going to treat those words like we treat the team that shall not be named, okay? So let's see if we can make it through our final hour together without going down that path. Because I've learned my lesson from the last hour when Steve snuck one in. I'm going to hang up on you. I'm going to hang up on you right away, or I might just tell you to do this.
Shut up! Shut up! You don't tell me shut up. I tell you shut up.
It could happen. I don't want it to happen. Let's not make it happen. Go to the phones, start the Talkback Hour with Grant. Good afternoon, Grant.
So we're taking out the trash tonight, the Londonites.
Oh, wow. Look at you go. Them some fighting words, Grant.
And I think what's-his-name should apologize on air to Mr. Fixture.
What's his name?
Dale Hunter for... Because if I was interviewing him, I want an apology. And then you mentioned... I wasn't too sure why the shelter is being closed.
Yes, we talked...
Yeah,
sorry. Okay, yeah, we talked about that on the show yesterday, Grant. The King Street shelter, which is in the former Schwaben Club, the region is closing that shelter at the end of the month. So 100 people, and only about half of them have shelter to move into.
So what was the reason?
I think mostly, Grant, it's because there had been some problems created in the neighborhood, and the region would like to get out from under that.
Oh, that's too bad.
It is.
I know in the past where they've been in other churches, they've had some disruptions from certain individuals that attend there. I guess they never really learn. It's too bad.
Yeah, it is, and this is a real challenge. And I got some feedback from the show yesterday that was pretty pointed in the direction and by way of criticism at the Working Center. And I'd just like to remind you that the Working Center's job is not necessarily to police the neighborhoods where shelters exist. The Working Center's job, their focus is exclusively on the individual and helping that individual stay safe, feel welcome, etc. The work that they do is beyond compare, in my opinion, and goes well beyond what I could ever, I think, possibly do, certainly on the scale that they do it. But to the point about the concerns, and Grant acknowledges it too, that he's seen in some churches that take in folks who would otherwise not have a place to go. These are the challenges that communities are facing today, because we can create space for folks who are unhoused to get some shelter and some safety and security. But then there does tend to be an impact on the surrounding neighborhood. And I think that people rightly raise their voices about that. The bottom line is we have to find ways, we really have to find ways to get proper treatment for folks. And it feels like we're so far behind in that regard, so far behind, that it's going to be almost impossible to catch up. I can tell you also in a related story that in Hamilton, they have cleared 16 encampments in their city. And on the one hand, you could look at that and say, there's a success story. They've cleared 16 encampments. On the other hand, you could say, what happened to the people in those encampments? Where do they go next? But we want encampments cleared in this community too. City of Guelph has been very vocal about that. And so too has the provincial government here in Ontario. So challenging times. But I would push back against a blame being assessed or directed towards the working center. Their focus is exclusively on the person who needs the help. That's what they're trying to do. They are providing the help. What happens in the neighborhood around those particular shelters becomes an entirely different conversation. Jody, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon. Hi.
How are you today, Mike?
Good, thank you.
It's good to hear. I just want to say that we all have a long road ahead of us, and because no one's really talking about the year 2040 or the year 2045 or anything like that, and so that just makes me think we got a lot of work to do, and I think if people spent more time helping others, than what we have helped other people. That not to the point of being taken advantage of course, but, spread more love around.
All right, Jody. I think we should start calling Jody the philosopher. I like the way Jody thinks. She just, more love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Your Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Your opportunity to let us know what's on your mind. Just please keep it double T free today. We're not talking about that guy or those things on the show this Tuesday afternoon. Talkback Hour continues. Barbara, good afternoon.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks. And you?
Awesome. Just coming back to my cottage. Quick question. What is a suite at the Odd? Is that a special room or something? One of the prizes?
Yes. Yeah. It's like one of the boxes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, fine. I want to talk about housing. Mike, I have an efficient and cost-effective solution for housing that is a no-brainer. This is the first time I've talked about it publicly, but I need to write about it. So there are many, many, many people who have a basement in their house. A lot of people in the older houses, whatever, have a basement in their house. They are not permitted to rent that basement out unless they have direct egress to the outside. That's a fire code issue or fire code requirement. Now, the thing is that many people, including me, have a bedroom in the basement where not anymore. My kids are gone, but where you have one of your kids living. Like that happens everywhere, and new homes are being built with drop-ins for bedrooms in the basement. So, as a society, either bedrooms in the basement are okay or they're not. And the number of people, a fire is dreadful and all that, but the number of people who die of fires in houses is very low, and death is usually associated with drug or alcohol use, based on my understanding. So if we re-looked at that fire code and changed that requirement, which is 30 or 40 or 50 years old, that would allow, let's say, seniors who are struggling to afford their house and students. We could put those two together and students could live in the basement. And let me comment on the kinds of places where people are living. As you probably know, I do a lot of door knocking during elections for the Green Party, whatever. And I go into all kinds of neighborhoods that are, it's low income. The condition of these buildings is atrocious. They're filthy. The locks don't work. I mean, there are a lot of people living in conditions that are not really appropriate, and we're not doing anything about that. So I think we need to look. I think this would solve a lot of housing right now by re-examining whether we need direct egress from the basement. Of course, there's egress from through the normal route. And also, anybody in a high-rise, I don't know what the ladder trucks could do anymore, but if you're more than 13 stories up, you do not have secondary egress. You've got, use the elevator in a fire, you've got stairs. All these new condos we're putting up, if you're on the 21st floor and there's a fire, good luck with that. So we have all these old standards on everything, and nobody's looking creatively at how we can optimize so that we can free up some of this housing. And my solution would not necessarily help homeless people, whatever the correct term is, pardon me, but it would open up housing for students. That would solve our housing problem easily, cost effectively, like at no cost, and it would help people struggling with affordability.
Barbara, I love the idea. You know what? I really do. I mean, it seems so simple. Antiquated laws that exist or codes that exist, do we still need them today? And don't even get me started on the height of the tallest towers going up these days. I've heard this often from emergency services. How are we getting to the 45th floor again, should the worst come to pass? But what a great idea if we just eliminated the rule that says you have to have separate entrance to that basement. Great idea. Love it. Kyle, good afternoon.
Let's go Rangers. I got a prediction for tonight. I think it's going to be a 3-2 win for the Rangers, of course, because they're going to win. And I think they just got to stay out of the penalty box. But who am I to tell them how to play the game, because I've never coached a hockey game in my entire life. And UC Hocus and the whole coaching staff seem to have that hockey team down to a pat. So that's my prediction. And a fun fact about the Kitchener region, or Waterloo region as well, is a radio host by the name of Mike Farwell is from Kitchener. So I just want to throw that one out there as well. Thanks, Mike. Have a great day, my friend.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate that. Kyle was referencing yesterday when he learned me a new one, that the baby twins from 3 Men and a Baby hail from Kitchener, the Dune area. And in fact, to reinforce Kyle's trivia tidbit that I was unaware of, one of the twins' husbands called the show and said, "We're together right now. She's drywalling in her father's house." So there you go. Look at that. The twins from 3 Men and a Baby from right here in Kitchener. I did not know that until yesterday. And yes, I'm also from Kitchener. Greg, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. Question for you.
Okay.
This idea of, Mark Carney in, it's going to be election soon. I guess, what's the benefit to him? Because if all along the polls are showing that it's going to be conservatives, like, why does he want to get out of power quickly?
Well, no, the polls right now, Greg, actually show a neck-and-neck race.
Okay, so is it that then that it's like, oh, while they're close, let's do it? Is it all about the best chance for him to win, or is there something more to it?
No, this is the best chance, I think, that the Liberals, certainly the best chance they've had in many, many months. Years, probably.
And so that's the reason why I've been saying, get ready, he's going to call an election.
Yep.
Just that.
I would assume so.
Okay, because, I guess all along I'm not really following the polls and like that, but all along I thought, okay, well, it was a given that it's going to be it, like no matter who's the leader. And that's why I was thinking, okay, well, why are they rushing an election then? But all right, so it's the other way around then.
Yep.
They're closing in and think that now's the time. And
absolutely.
Okay. That's all I needed today. Good, thanks.
You're welcome. Anytime. And look, I'd like to also think we'll do it because it's the right thing to do. Like, you haven't been elected by Canadians, just by the Liberal Party and its supporters. So let's go to the polls. Let's allow Canadians the chance to set a mandate here and choose who they want to lead the way. This is the Mike Farwell Show. Your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a very talkative Tuesday, right back to the busy phone lines. Jay, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good.
Not to be confused with the real toll-free, Jay. I couldn't get through the local line.
Well, you're a smart man, because if you can't get one number, try another one, and the 1-800 line works pretty much anywhere.
Perfect. Anyway, I'd like to go back to what you were talking about earlier this morning about your most memorable shopping places.
Yeah.
Couple callers kind of stole my thunder with Towers, Wilco, and Woolworths. But it got me thinking about Zellers and the restaurant inside.
Yes, those little red stools.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's it.
All right, Jay. Hey, thanks, man. Listen, there's always time for a little more levity on the show, especially when it's a TNT-free Tuesday. But yes, Zellers, the little lunch counter, bring it on, baby. Tom, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. As a young guy growing up in Toronto, my mother and I would take the odd once in a while. I should say, living in King City. Our annual trip into Toronto the big thing was going to Eaton's and going to the Eaton's Annex, which was in the basement for all the shopping for clothes and that, and having a lunch down at the Bay and Bloor bus terminal. That was the big thing. Just a question: do you remember a store called the Gem Store, which was a government employees mercantile?
I do not remember that one.
It's the same thing as Costco. You had to be a government employee to be able to shop there.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's just one of the same things. But a lot of the stores that everybody's talking about today, Byways and Park and Heralds and that, have all gone away. There is a store in Toronto called Jerry's Budget Center. It is still operating, and the owner is still, he must be in his 90s now. And that's where we used to go to get all our stuff as a kid and when we were students to buy jeans and stuff. It's Jerry's Budget Center, still there.
There you go. Tom, appreciate that. Another great trip down our memory lane of shopping experiences at department stores. Afif, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. For me, first of all, go Rangers tonight, but also you should probably play TNT by 8, what's the name? 8.
Oh, yeah, little TNT Dynamite.
Yeah, so only TNT, so why not just play that song?
Okay, there you go. I like it.
All right, have a good day.
Thanks, Afif. I appreciate the call. I want to touch on this email from Peter, too, who writes to Mike at 570news.com because I was talking about the Olympia ice resurfacing machine and how I've always wondered why on earth we don't use the Elmira-made product on ice surfaces around this community. I've been told they're at the Hespeler Arena. I know they're out at Rim Park. I haven't seen them around Kitchener. And Peter's email to Mike at 570news.com reminds me that not all is lost when it comes to the other brand of ice resurfacing machine. The fact is, here at my work in New Hamburg, we make the gearboxes for that other ice resurfacing machine. So they're actually a significant customer of ours and still locally sourced to some degree. Makes me think of the automotive sector, right? Lots of parts along the path. And yes, people being employed, even though that ice resurfacing machine has its headquarters in the United States. Thanks for the email, Peter. Thanks for the work that you do in beautiful New Hamburg. Your Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio, Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour every day, noon until 1. You call, we answer, you talk. It's that simple. And I think you know how this works now because our phone lines are very busy today. Back we go. Bryce, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. So I've been listening to the Nonstop Talkback Hour, and about the Olympia Zamboni re-ice surfacing machines. There is one I know that just newly came to Lions Arena in Kitchener.
Why didn't it? Where is it? Did it get lost on the way?
No, it is there.
Oh, it is there. Sorry, I thought you said there was one that was supposed to come there. Well, that's great. Good. Let's get more of them, please.
Yeah, then there is one also at Activa, too. And I might be wrong on this, but there might be one at Sports World Arena, too.
Bryce, you're a good man. You're my eyes out there, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next to Nathan. Nathan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. You know I've been listening to you since day one, right?
Yeah, you are kind of like a day oneer and a 9 a.m.er. I mean, you're all of the things, yeah.
Yeah. So with your caller, Steve, earlier, I just don't understand what he is really wanting there from the 4-panel show. It's a show where community members, doesn't really necessarily mean politics, talk about the topics of the week, and it's not really a debate, it's more of a discussion. So not really sure what he's hearing, but I've also, all the years listening to you, have heard so many times where you try to get a guest on or a politician of the conservative stripe, and sometimes you just get ghosted. You know, like they're a no-show.
That actually was a very disappointing occurrence the last time we had the Conservative Party leader. We had Pierre Poilievre scheduled, and he stood us up, or his people did, at the very last minute, the morning of.
But you've had him on in the past.
Of course we have. Of course we have.
And then you have your regular callers like Paul from Preston, who's very conservative. You hear a lot of voices on your show. I find it very center-based, your show, which is why I enjoy it, because you get to hear everybody's different opinions. So, Steve, if you really, really want to have a conservative conversation show, just wait until after Mike's show is done and listen to Rob Snow, because that's going to fill your blue little heart.
All right, Nathan, thanks for that. Listen, I did get more defensive than I thought I would during that half hour earlier. I get it. I do. I really do. I strive incredibly hard for balance. The Friday 4 panel is just how Nathan described it. Every Friday, 11 till noon, you get to hear different people's perspectives on the big stories of the week. They might agree. It's not set up to be a debate. We're not ringing a bell and going into a sparring ring here or a debate stage. It's just not the way it's designed. You just get to hear different points of view on the big stories of the week. And yeah, sometimes those views align. I really think that those who have the hardest time with what they hear or don't hear is because they don't hear themselves reflected in the show. And I am sorry for that. Like, unfortunately, I can't be everything for everybody, because if I try to be that, then I'm not going to be anything. Much like the party in Waterloo, right? It's everybody's problem, so it's nobody's problem for St. Paddy's Day in the University District. I can't be everything to everybody, but I certainly try to bring a wide variety of issues to the show and give them some perspective. You don't have to agree with the perspective, and then I give you the chance to call in and tell me why you don't agree, too. It's the way it works, and we're going to keep doing our best, I promise you that. Melissa, good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I am good.
Good.
One thing I noticed is that you always really do promote local shopping and supporting local, even with the ice cleaners. But I am a small business owner, and I'm not going to say my own business. What I want to do is mention to people that if they are looking for Ontario-made products, there's actually a website that shows all the Ontario makers, everybody from like hot stuff to furniture to, all kinds of things. And it's just called supportonteriomade.ca.
Supportonteriomade.ca.
Yep.
I love it.
And it has so many different little businesses out there that you can shop local from. And so if you're searching, especially with sad news like Hudson Bay going under, you can start looking for alternatives.
I love it. And I'm glad you noticed that I'm a big fan. I think Nathan just mentioned listening since day one. I've always been a support local guy. Can I ask you a question before I let you go, Melissa?
Sure.
What's your business?
My husband and I design things using Ontario wood. So we design furniture, wood purses, wood wallets, all that kind of good stuff.
I love it. So crafty, so impressive. Where do we find your stuff, Melissa? Come on.
Okay, it's Christensen, so it's with the K, Christensen, Christensen and Smith.
And we just lost the end of that call. But Christensen and Smith, there you go. And supportonteriomade.com.ca. I should write things down, but I'm going to find it. Thank you for that, Melissa. And thanks for being a local small business owner, providing all of those handcrafted wood products. Ontario made, baby. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. I was at the Allman Arena on the weekend in Stratford, and they have an Olympia.
What the HE double hockey sticks, Terry?
I looked for that in the front. I was wondering which style it was. But anyway, that caller you had about, he thinks that your panel 4 is left-leaning.
Yeah.
Maybe he should turn to dial if he doesn't like it. I mean, it's not like you can dig up the bones of Hitler, Mussolini, and General Franco to get on there. But anyway, Mike, I took issue with something you said. Your friend there, Jason, called in yesterday, and you said you don't want Aaron Rodgers on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I do not want Aaron Rodgers on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mike, as a big fan of the Steelers, that's a pretty bold statement for a team that hasn't done anything in a decade. Wouldn't you want the best?
No, the best. No, the best.
He's better. He's a better option what the Steelers have had over the last handful of years, isn't he?
I thought Russell Wilson did fine this year. I thought Justin Fields was a good up-and-comer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know they bungled all of that, but I want nothing to do with the cancer that is Aaron Rodgers. Nothing.
Okay, Mike. Okay, he was with the Jets last 2 years. The Jets are a dysfunctional organization.
So is the quarterback.
So that's what? Okay, in your opinion, with a buffoon for an owner. So
okay.
Nobody can. The second coming of Johnny Unitas couldn't help the Jets.
Well, that's fine. I don't care. I just don't want a cancer like Aaron Rodgers anywhere near my football team.
Then expect mediocrity, Mike. Even the Cleveland Browns in their second reincarnation have won more playoff games than the Steelers have in the last 10 years. Just put that out there.
Thanks, buddy. Kick me while I'm down. Kick me while I'm down, Terry. My team, I can cheer for who I want, and I don't cheer for Aaron Rodgers. Love you, Terry. Thanks for the call. Talkback Hour continues, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a busy Talkback Hour this Tuesday afternoon. Paul, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Hey, listen, earlier when you were talking with about the impact of a asteroid, just before that, you said something about it would be nice if it would eliminate a certain segment of society.
Yeah, my buddies and I created the comet of stupidity. It's the comet that collides with the Earth, but it only wipes out the dum-dums. I know it's not kind, but that's what we did.
The Douglas Adams, in his book, one of the series of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books, was talking about a ship that some planet decided to get rid of all the middlemen, so to speak. The telephone sanitizers was one of the ones that they thought, really didn't produce anything for the planet. So they put all these hairdressers and telephone sanitizers and everything else on this ship, and they sent it off into space with lock controls and just waited for it to crash land on some planet. Allegedly, that planet was Earth, but we won't go into that part of it. But the funny thing was that after they did that, the entire population got wiped out by a virus that was passed through a telephone handset.
Boom. See? So what Paul is saying is we need the dum-dums. It was just a joke that my friends and I used to, we still make reference to it every once in a while. We just say, come on, comet, because we know what that means. Every time we read another story about somebody who seems less than intelligent. That's all. Steve, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So just calling back in regards to the second or third last caller you just had on there. He had a valid point. If I don't like what I'm hearing, why don't I just turn the dial? Fair point. Here's the problem. Right after that, he sums it up with the insinuation that if I wanted to hear something more right-wing, and then names three dictators, three homicidal murderers, right? So it's very telling when you have these callers call in and say stuff like that. Even more telling is that you didn't correct them.
Oh, come on. Now, Steve, hang on a second. No. Okay, hang on.
Free pass.
Hang on.
If I don't want to listen to your leftist panels, I must be a racist, a bigot.
That's not. Give me a break. First of all.
That is what he said.
Hang on a second.
Those were his words.
Steve.
And you didn't correct him. You laughed about it.
Steve. Exactly. Which is, you are the biggest dink of all time. Steve just hung up on me. That's fine. You know what? Sometimes I hang up on people too. And I'm sure you think I'm the biggest dink of all time. All I was going to say, if Steve had the cojones to sit around and listen to it, is get over yourself. I was about to say, you know what? I got defensive earlier today in my conversation with Steve. I wish I hadn't gotten as defensive as I did. Whatever. But I'm here, and I have to take that stuff because it comes with the territory. All I was going to say back to Steve is it wasn't meant like anything other than exaggeration for the sake of the joke. That's all it was. Nobody called you anything. Get over your hurt little itty-bitty feelings, you big baby. Oy, 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 oy. Find a mirror, look into it, and then smile, please. Marianne, good afternoon.
I'm calling about the shopping. First, I want to say, go Rangers, go tonight.
Atta girl, Marianne. Atta girl.
Yeah. And then I want to say about the shopping stores that I remember are Consumers, Woolworths, Wilco, Zellers, and Towers. Towers I remember because I have worked there in their cafeteria or their restaurant. And I remember Kmart, the blue light flashing specials.
Oh, my gosh, the blue light specials, yes.
Yes, and I remember, and one time I was in there Christmas time, my girlfriend and I were in there doing our Christmas shopping, and they came around with the blue light flashing specials, and also came around, they were giving away things, and I won a pair of gloves.
You won a pair of gloves, and you remember it all these years later.
I remember. I still remember that. Yeah.
Good
I
job.
might have been maybe a teenager by then, or maybe early 20s.
I forgot all about the blue light specials. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And another story. Remember, you probably don't remember it. I'm from Melverton, and we did a lot of our shopping in Stratford. It was called the Store Walkers. And the reason I remember that store is not that I want to go shopping there, but the thing I like when Mom took me in there and we got to ride around in the strollers and she pushed me all over the store.
Isn't it the best?
That's the best. Yes, I like that.
I love it, Marianne. Thank you for sharing those memories of department stores from a bygone era, just like Hudson's Bay is about to become. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Final minutes of our show today before an update from the 570 News Center. And then, is Rob Snow going to work today? Do we know? Does anyone know? I would know Rob Snow today. So we're going to just, because you missed it earlier, you loved it so much. Can you please just replay then? Like, you should put on repeat. Just make a loop of that call we just got from Steve. I think that would make for an entertaining next couple of hours. Back to the phones. Our Talkback Hour continues. Ernie, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. The only reason I started listening to your show is just to troll you about the Steelers. You know what I mean? Like, that was, and then I actually started, I enjoyed it. I've heard you in the past here and there and stuff like that. And I definitely do enjoy your show most of the time. We disagree, we agree, we don't. Steve, I wish you would have stayed on the line. I did agree with a lot of what he said. Not everything, of course, but he made some valid, that panel is hard to listen to sometimes. But I understand it's not a debate. But it seems like there are four people that just agree with the same thing. And it's just a bash fest a lot of the time. Not all the time, Mike. A lot of times it's objective. And I know you have Drew on there as well, which obviously you can bring to the other side. But I enjoy your show, and I listen to that, Mike, also too, because I'm like, okay, I want to see what they're saying. I want to.
That's all I ever ask for. Exactly. Just listen to somebody else's point of view.
And Mike, I firmly, Larry, I cannot stand Larry. I shouldn't say that. He's not. I'm glad you're not off. But you, as far as I've listened to, and I've listened to your show for quite a while now, you see that, Mike. I think you do a pretty good job of trying to be clear and straight. I know, I'm going to probably be a right winger and say you probably are too left leaning, but that's bred in me, right? Like that's how I think. But I do enjoy your show, Steve. You should have stayed on the line if you're going to say it back. But also too, Mike, I agree with the point, too. When they're comparing him to a dictator because he doesn't...
But nobody was, though. Like, it was just... and honestly, you gotta get over yourself a little bit and grow some skin here.
No, but the caller that called in just said that about it. Come on, Mike. That's where it's like, you can't be caring... Just because he disagrees with the left side, you're going to call Mussolini or Hitler? Come on.
All right. But he didn't call him that. He didn't call... If he wants to listen to people like that, sorry that they're dead. Like, that's simple. That was the simple point. And again, they're dead. It was a joke.
Right, I get you. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Ernie. And keep trolling me about the Steelers. I respect that. Bill, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. Just calling about the old places around Kitchener.
Yeah.
Dutch Boy.
Oh, Dutch Boy.
Yeah.
A lot of people had a lot of work there.
Oh, I got a job there when I was a teenager. They told me I needed to get a haircut and ran into a couple of guys and he said, just get a wig. So we were wearing these wigs. My mom got me a wig for about $5, and everybody's walking around the store wearing these wigs.
I love it. Listen, it reminds me of tucking my hair up under my hat and going in to ask them why. Signs, everywhere sign. Get a haircut and get a real job. Could we weave song lyrics into everything we talk about on the show? I don't know. But good job by you not invoking the name of the U.S. president or those things that he has imposed upon us for 4 full hours today. We did a very good job of a TNT-free Tuesday here on the show. Game day, Kitchener Rangers take on the London Knights tonight. Paul Fixter and I will be on the air at 6:30 with your Harris Law pregame show. And tomorrow, I'm going to be on location in Elmira at the Woolwich Community Center to get you ready for the National U Sports Women's Hockey Championship. It'll be the same show, but on location from Elmira. So if you're in the area, especially if you stop by the Timmy's on Arthur Street first and then pop in, I mean, whatever. But hey, I'll see you tomorrow in Elmira when we come back for a show on location. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio, Rogers TV.